What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with SPY, Tesla, Nvidia, the QQQ, and a couple of other tickers. I'm going to talk about why tomorrow is going to be a crazy day as we have CPI data coming out, some big involvements with Donald Trump's tariffs, which could be affecting Tesla and products just like that. Not to mention some new news involving Ukraine and Russia. So there's a lot of news coming out that's affecting Tesla. Let's break all of this down. Just know that I'm not a financial planner, so take nothing I'm saying as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. Deposits $2,000, you're guaranteed 30, not to mention 8.1% APY on invested cash. The offer ends at the end of March. Anyways, let's talk about the markets. So as far as Tesla's going, when you zoom out, as you guys can see for the last couple of months, Tesla has consistently been making lower highs and lower lows, continuing to dump and dump and dump. Now, with this dump that's been perpetuating, just keep in mind that Tesla's been trying to form a bullish divergence. We have a triple bullish divergence forming, which oftentimes signifies that a bounce could be coming. We're also at a very, very critical zone because when you go back on the daily time frame, you'll see that Tesla has had a tendency of bouncing between 215 and 200 many, many times, right? And this does not have to be an all-time high bounce, a new bounce like crazy. It could just be a temporary dead cat bounce or just a temporary bounce for a couple of days or a week or two, just a temporary move up for now. So I'm just trying to say we have this support right here. We had this nice zone where Tesla loved to bounce around this like 215 area, also around the low 200s. So just keep that in mind. So that being said, what do I think is going to pan out from this point on? Let's break this down. It's very important to remember that the news affects Tesla a lot, and let me give you some proof of that. So if you look at the 5 minutes time frame, the way Tesla was swinging all day was very dependent on the news. So if you look at the chart, we're making big moves on Tesla. First off, we got this pump with the JOLTS job openings reports. Then we got this rug pull after Donald Trump announced that he was possibly going to be increasing tariffs to 50% on Canada and Mexico for their, I'm sorry, not Mexico, just Canada for their aluminum and steel imports. But then he did back down on that, which is a good piece of news. Tesla was all the way down here around 223. Then we saw this thing rocket to almost 237 a share. So we got this big pump after we got some news about Russia and Ukraine. Ukraine have once again agreed to a ceasefire. We're still waiting for Russia's end on this, and that's what caused the market to bounce again. So my point is the market's going back and forth, back and forth, back and forth because of news involving Trump's tariffs, news about ceasefires and this and that from Russia and Ukraine, and a bunch of other things. If you look at SPY, the same thing happened. Very similar setup. This was dumping amidst Donald Trump's announcement of increasing tariffs to 50% on Canada because of the fact that, once again, they wanted to increase tariffs in the US, causing more expenditures for electricity and like energy here. So it was a big mess. But the good thing is that Donald Trump has backed down on that. He's saying they're going to just keep him at 25%. So that's something worth mentioning. Then we got this monstrous bounce after the Ukraine news came out. So I'll talk more about that later on. But the question is, what's going to happen to Tesla from this point on? Are we going to see a big bounce or are we about to dump? Is Tesla going to see a very, very big move? The answer is it depends on CPI. So I'm going to talk about CPI and all these factors first. Then I'll break down these charts. So as you guys can see in the markets, there's a lot of red still, right? The market is still quite fearful. Nvidia and Tesla were both in the green. Many big tech stocks were kind of flat, but we saw some red here and there when it comes to like health technology and factors like that. So keep that in mind. Despite that, we had some news that came out. Donald Trump said that he's going to be buying a Tesla as the company's shares are dumping to help the company out. I think there's a video of him basically buying it and actually going inside of it with Elon Musk. So keep that in mind. That news did come out. This could be part of why Tesla started to bounce just a little bit. We'll see how that affects their sales, if it does or if it doesn't. For now, though, there's still a lot of negative talk about Tesla's future. Negative talk about their sales, their expectations for earnings and factors like that. That's what I'm referring to. Now, whether we bounce or not also depends on some more news. Tomorrow we have CPI data coming out. We're expecting core CPI month over month to be at 0.3% for a slight decrease. We're expecting core year over year to be at 3.2% for a slight decrease as well. For all items, month over month, we're expecting 0.3%, and then year over year, we're expecting 2.9%. We're expecting CPI to come down. Is that probable? Well, it depends. As you guys can see, CPI has been on a big uptrend. There were periods where this was uptrending only to get a big rejection. So just because we uptrend, it doesn't mean that this is going to be, lasting forever. So we want to see If CPI and core CPI start to come down, it's been a long time since that happened. And if we get that, that's going to be a good sign for the markets. Heading into tomorrow, just know that when we look at crude futures are in a critical place right here. They were at about 74.81 in January. Then for the month of February, they came down to about 71.22. Now, with them coming down at least just a little bit, that could be a factor in that's going to be like driving down CPI. There's a possibility of that. Not a 100% guarantee, but I just say that because when you look at the trends in them, they do tend to shift together and move together historically, very similarly. Look at the last couple of years, they pushed together, came down together, pushed together, came down together. And now that's, CPI has been coming up just a bit. We also saw this coming up a little bit. Crude is starting to come down a bit, so that could be a good sign, at least for CPI. So we'll see about that. So keep that in mind. Involving Donald Trump, so keep in mind that he has his deadline tomorrow for his tariffs on steel and aluminum. He threatened 50% tariffs on Canada in response to them trying to impose that much of a tariff on electricity. But instead, what's happening is that Donald Trump is back down on that and he wants to keep it at 25%. So this could be because of negotiations and factors like that. But for now, that tariff is going to be imposed. And I do believe the market should be pricing in most of this for now. So we'll see about that. What helped the market to some extent is this news right here. Ukraine has agreed to a temporary ceasefire with Russia. And then there's also news that if this ends up being the case, we're waiting for Russia on their side. If Russia ends up agreeing, that's going to be a good piece of news for the markets. And then the last factor affecting the markets is this. The U.S. House of Representatives is once again trying to approve another government funding through September with another funding bill. The bill has passed the House. Now it has to go through the Senate. If it does do that, then Donald Trump has to sign it. What typically happens is there's going to be negotiations and arguments, but then at the last minute, they tend to push the bill and tends to pass when people least expect it. So in this case, I think the same thing is going on. I say this because that's what's been happening. They argue about politics, then at the last minute they pass it. So hopefully that happens again. And if that ends up being the case, we're going to be completely fine. I think there's a good chance that they're going to pass the bill by Friday. The deadline is Friday, by the way. If they don't pass it by then there's going to be a government shutdown. So we should be okay. For other factors, we have our earnings that came out, especially when you're looking at our retail. So there's not really much coming out for now. I just want to give you guys a picture of this in case you want to see it. Last thing is the fear and greed index is still at extreme fear. When you look at the timeline, we're at the lowest amount of this rating that we've seen since July. So we're at the most fearful place since July of 2024. We're super, super fearful. We're super, super scared. And typically when it's this low, this is when the market tries to see some kind of bounce. Not always, though, as recessions could be external factors, but this is something that's just worth mentioning. So with that being said, right now, momentum is extremely fearful. The put to call option ratio is going up as we're seeing a lot more fear building up. And the VIX is still elevated, which tends to be bearish. So the bears are still at a big edge right here. We'll have to see if this lasts. So in my opinion, let's talk about the charts now and just focus on that and nothing else. What do I think is going to happen from this point on? Well, Tesla has been on a very, very big downtrend. It has not got any sort of like bounce. It's been just continuing to reject off our very, very key 20 EMA, the green line you see right here. So with the bullish divergence right here, here's what's going to happen. With CPI coming out for tomorrow, if we get a bad CPI and Tesla kind of gaps down, we have to see if 215 holds. If we lose that, we could be dipping to 212, then 205 for another move down. We do love to base around 200, so there's a good chance it may try that, but that's like the more bearish case, right? The bullish case would be Tesla tries to push like this. We try to make our way back up above this trend line. We try to get back above 240. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt for 249, which is where our 20 EMA is. And if that breaks, we're going to be looking for a bigger move right back up. So keep that in mind. We could be looking for a push to the 250s. So what do I think is going to happen? What is my prediction for those who are curious? I wouldn't be surprised if Tesla tries to rebound a bit, but there might be another liquidity grab, whether we see a dip to make a higher low or if we end up breaking this low. And then if we're truly going to reverse, I do think there's a good chance we try to go a bit higher for that like 250 targets. We could even go higher depending on other factors like the spending bill, what happens with Donald Trump's tariffs and factors like that. But I am leaning a little bit more bullish because I think the market's due for that and there's a bullish divergence forming. So look for a small pullback, then a bounce. Maybe we gap up with CPI, dip a bit, then start to bounce again. I'm looking for a move like this where we gap up like this, we come back down, then we start to bounce and break out a little bit higher. That's what I'm looking for on Tesla as the most likely possibility. And that's what my prediction is. So just keep that in mind based off what we're seeing on the charts and these other factors. For SPY, we have a bullish divergence. We're looking for 568 as the main resistance. If we're bullish on SPY, you want to see this thing basically get back above 568. If we break that, we're looking for a push into the 570s pretty easily, 575 or so. If we're bearish, you want to see SPY essentially reject and lose 550. If that fails us, we're looking for a move all the way down towards, the low 540s. What do I think is going to happen? My gut tells me hopefully CPI is decent. We kind of gap up like this, get some kind of pullback move. If we can make a higher low compared to this could be our reversal structure. And we could be looking for an attempt to get back to the 570s for a temporary bounce. We also have a gap to fill up here around 575. So I think there's a good chance we try to get that rebound. That's what I'm leaning towards. I don't know for sure, though. It depends on the CPI data. I'm obviously not a fortune teller, but this is just what I predict is likely going to happen. We also have a big bullish divergence developing on the QQQ. This is very, very strong, and there's a good chance this could be signaling a reversal very soon. Now, just to be safe, okay, if we get a bad CPI, we need to see this thing lose like 468. If that fails us, we're going to easily dip to the low 460s. If we hold 468, we're looking for some kind of rebound move back up towards 483. So my gut tells me that if we gap up, we're going to be looking for a move like this before it tries to rebound. So we might see some kind of gap up. There could be a dip afterwards back down towards this gap fill if we do end up coming back down like this. But if we can make a higher low, there's going to be a very good chance we return to about very close to 490 to fill this imbalance up here. I think there's a very good chance we try to go for that if we get some kind of bullish reversal. We do have some catalysts from Donald Trump's tariffs, the potential ceasefire between Russia and Ukraine for at least a temporary basis. Maybe it's going to be the funding bill and then CPI. There's all these different factors that could cause this. So I'm going to be watching to see if we form some kind of rebound. On the Russell 2000, we're technically bearish, but the market's trying to hold here. If we fail at 198, we're looking for a dump all the way down towards 195 or below. If we hold the support, we're looking for a break of 204 to start pumping a lot more. My gut tells me move down, a retest of 204, then maybe a break from here is likely coming. On ES, we're at support here. Notice that we have this big trend line. This is our support, and then this is also acting as resistance. So we'll see if we get some kind of rebound or not. We're holding support, so that's a very, very good sign. So watch and see if we hold. I'm going to be watching to see if we could see a rebound from here. So look for a move like this where we kind of gap up, see a little move down. If we could hold this yellow trend line, there's a good chance we try to get back up to 5670 to about 5700 plus. If we lose the trend line around 5500, we could be dumping a lot more. So 25 fills us, we could be dipping more. My gut tells me we attempt some kind of rebound move to get back to the 5600s. For NQ has this resistance around this 19,700 area. If that breaks, we're looking for the 20,000s. If we lose support here at 19,200, we could be dipping. My gut tells me we try to make a higher low and try to push for 19,800, so give this the time it needs. There's also a slight divergence. It's not looking as strong, so I want to see us get back above this blue trend line around 19,700 for this to try to bounce, so just keep that in mind. For Bitcoin's also forming a potential inverse head and shoulders. There's a left shoulder here, a head, and then we'll see if we form some kind of like right shoulder like this. So we'll see. If we're bearish, you want to see us lose 77,000. If we're bullish, you want to break 84,000. I'm looking for an inverse head and shoulders is the most likely possibility. If Nvda ends up losing 105, we're looking for a dip to low 100s. If we hold support, then we're looking for some kind of rebound move. So we'll see how it goes. This might be pushing for a 111. We could be dipping to make a higher low. Then we could be looking for a bounce for 115. I do anticipate a move like this as the most likely possibility. Hopefully CPI helps us pump. It depends if we can hold 105 or not, but that's what's looking very probable to me. On Aapl, you want to see us hold 220. If this could hold, there's a good chance we're looking for an attempt to get back up to this imbalance. If we hold 120, I'm looking for 127. If we lose 120, we could be dumping to like 215. So I think there's a good chance that 220 tries to hold. Netflix has resistance around 906. If that breaks, I think we push for the 920s. If we're weak and we end up losing 900, if we can't hold above that, we're going to be at risk of dipping closer to about 870. So keep that in mind. We're looking like we have potential, but it depends on this data. So we'll see how it ends up going, at least for us moving forward. For MSTR, we look a bit more bullish with the inverse hand shoulders. I want to see us break past 266. If that breaks, we have a gap to fill back up to 284. If we lose support at 250, we could be dumping. So we'll see if we get that reversal. Watch and see if 266 breaks for more upside. Celsius looks a bit more bullish as there are buyers stepping in. As long as we don't lose 26.5, we're favoring upside for very close to 30. If we lose 26.5, we could be dumping more. So keep that in mind. We're showing some life, a little bit of potential. For super micro, we want to see this thing break past 41. If that breaks, we're looking for an attempt for 45. If we end up losing this 35 area, we could be dipping back down to 33. So keep that in mind. Palantir's looking quite good. We want to see this thing break past 81.1. If that breaks, we have a gap to fill. It's about 85. If we end up losing support at 84, we're looking for a dip back down towards, 74. If we lose 74, we're going to be dipping back down. Palantir looks like it wants to be testing 81 tomorrow, so we'll see just to be safe, depending on our data. For others out there, we also happen to have Rivian, which is on a downtrend. If we could break past 11.08, we're looking for an attempt for 11.36. If we end up losing 10.5, we could be dumping more. There's a bullish divergence here. So break 11.08, and then we're looking for a bounce. For SoFi, we're kind of stuck in the middle. We have a potential divergence right here. I want to see us get back above 12.1 to bounce. If not, we could be dipping back down towards 10.5. This is favoring a rebound move, so we'll see how this ends up going. AMD, you want to break past 98. If that breaks, we're looking for 101. If we end up losing 95, we're going to be dipping. So there's like a double bottom here. So we'll see if we get buyers that defend and push us back above 98.1. There's a bullish divergence on ARM. So you want to break past 119 to get back to about 127.9. If we end up losing 110, we're looking for a dump towards the low 100s. I'm looking for a bounce right over here. On coin, we have a gap to fill way up here around this 212 area. If we break past 200, we're looking for that. If we end up losing 183, we could be dipping. So we'll see if we get that bounce through 200. For Amazon, if 199 breaks, we're looking for an attempt to get back up to about 202. If we end up losing 192, we could be dipping back down to about 190. This is looking quite good. So we'll see if we get this bounce towards 202. So keep that in mind. For Meta, we're on a downtrend. Technically, you want to see it get back above 619 to push for the 630s. If we lose 600, we're looking for a dip to about 587, depending on CPI. But this is favoring upside a bit more. We're in the middle right now for Microsoft. You want to see us get back above like 387 to bounce. Otherwise, we're just kind of trading sideways. If we break 387, we're looking for a push towards 392. So keep that in mind. Google's looking decent. We want to see this break 168. If that breaks, we're looking for 170. GameStop is looking a little bit more promising, looking for 23 as a potential target. AMC is kind of flat around this 3 area. DJT looking for 20. On the VIX, I noticed that we have this triple bearish divergence. So we have a lot of gaps to fill down here. At least these two gaps might get filled for a temporary move down. If it does end up cooling off and starts reversing for 21, there's a good chance that is what could be happening. So watch that very, very closely, especially as time goes on. For the 10-year treasury yield, we have an inverse head and shoulders here, so it's still kind of like moving, and the dollar's kind of flat, so we're just waiting to see. So honestly, guys, I know Tesla's been in a pickle for the last couple of weeks with all this bad news. Their sales declining and etc. But for the short term, there is potential for us to try to see some kind of rebound move with this bullish divergence. I can't make promises. It depends on the status. So get ready for CPI tomorrow morning before market open. Not to mention some news involving Ukraine, Donald Trump, and the U.S. Senate, as they could be passing a funding bill very soon. Much of that news is like a little bit more bullish. We'll see how things end up going. But with that being said, guys, I thank you all so much for listening. As far as Tesla's future goes, I'm still a very big bull for the long term. And I think that, the balance I'm talking about is not that Tesla's going to be forming an ultimate bottom. This could just be a temporary bottom and a temporary move up, which is what we're due for. That's completely normal. So this could be another opportunity for however you want to trade this. So please keep that in mind. That's what I'm anticipating so far. With that being said, I thank you all so much. So I wish you all the best. I'm going to be back tomorrow before market open with another update. Until then, take care, guys, and peace out.